Hi guys, it's album review time. We've got Deny the Fallen and Echo Chamber. Luckily enough, I got sent this early. 8 tracks, originally set up to be an EP. It's turned out almost a full length. Well, it is a full length. I think it's over 30 minutes long, making it a full length. The cool thing about this is the band, Deny the Fallen, are looking at releasing 2 more of these soon after this, so they're working on new music very soon, even though most people haven't heard this yet. So I really appreciate Deny the Fallen and Jonathan Johnson especially for sending me this album. So Echo Chamber, like I said, no release date, 8 tracks. This is a Christian metal band from the US. They've only brought out 1 album so far, and of course a few singles dotted about at the tail end of last year. I did hear a few songs off of this album beforehand, loved every single one. And guys, this is an amazing album. And it's the sort of music that would appeal to fans of modern metal, and it's got influences of, you know, classic metal, maybe from the 80s and maybe the 90s and even the 2000s as well. It's a great mixture of metal that always is in with that groove of metal. You know, there's lots of different elements, but they never stray from the metal side of the band. So I would say this is a massive improvement on the album, Symptoms of Eternity. Although I love the album, but they've almost taken everything from that album and ramped everything up to almost perfect their sound. And it's definitely the sound that I'm loving, you know, the influences and stuff they brought along on the ride with them. But they're such a inventive band as well. They sound original. Anyone who doesn't know who's in this band are 2 members, ex-members, although they're working with that band again, Sacred Warrior. So a massive part of the Christian metal scene, late 80s. Jonathan Johnson and Ray Parra are part of this band. Ray Parra, the vocalist of Sacred Warrior, ex-vocalist, and like I said, working with again. And Jonathan Johnson, they came together on the Obsessions album, which I believe is looked at as one of the most classic albums of Sacred Warrior. So influences, we talked about influences a little bit. What's running through this album? Well, for me, what I can hear, and this is just me personally, I can hear some Queensryche influence. I think that's where we're talking 80s influence a little bit. And I'm thinking more modern Queensryche, which is not a bad thing. They're a brilliant band now. You could argue just as good as they were back then. A bit of Pantera, I would say, and I noticed that in the debut album as well. The riffing, especially the groove-laden riffs, giving me a Pantera feel. And some newer things I think that have been injected into this band. A bit of Alice in Chains, I would say. Some sort of those real sort of drony, sort of doomy sort of riffs. And Tremonti, I'd say, is definitely an influence, especially as I know Jonathan on a guitar level, you know, and obviously Mark Tremonti is a great musician, plays guitar for Alter Bridge as well, as you guys know, and you know, he's just a master songwriter, and I can see the influences that he's having on Jonathan's music. Not totally, I wouldn't say, you know, Jonathan's totally like, you know, devoted this album to the sound of Tremonti, but you can hear that influence just coming through brilliantly. So yeah, it's almost a thrashy, proggy, groove-laden metal album. Just fantastic sound on this. Talk about sound production. Jonathan Johnson also produced this album, and it sounds amazing. It sounds huge, and I know that he is a stickler for having a great sounding album, and this does not let you down whatsoever. It's crunchy, it's thumping, it's stomping. You know, the overall sound. He's brought the best out of every instrument for sure. So we've talked about Ray Parra and Jonathan. I just want to give a little insight into Ray Parra, because obviously, if anyone, like Sacred Warrior fans out there, will know he had a highly influenced vocal. He did sound a lot like Geoff Tate back in the 80s. There's just a little bit of that floating around still, I would say, especially as they're bringing that Queensryche sound in a little bit, in my opinion. But he's still, you know, he's got his own voice now. I think it's perfectly suited for this type of modern metal as well. So apart from Jonathan Johnson as well on the guitar, he does an amazing job, along with Jeff Rankin, 2 guitarists, just wow, I mean, the riffing on this album is just relentless. It's a bit brutal at times, and other times it's really melancholic. Like I said, there's some great sort of inventive, droney type riffs as well. It flirts between a lot of influences and a lot of sounds, but Deny the Falling are definitely their own band as well. You know, they take, as in all bands do, they take little influences from stuff they listen to, maybe sometimes not even knowing they're doing it, because you know, we love metal music. If any of us started a band, we would bring the influences of stuff we listen to into that music, even without knowing sometimes. Also, you've got Josh Johnson on the drums and Eric Kerr on the bass. Just a brilliant rhythm section. Like I said, with this heavy groove laden metal, sometimes you really want that groove to be in the pocket, and the band sound really tight. They've tightened everything, like I said, they have out of that debut album, introduced more melody in my opinion, and they've got a great sounding album now. Like I said, a few songs that I've already heard of this album, but there's some that I haven't. So we start off the album with Echo Chamber, the title track.
Just a crying shame to see your mind be changed.
Like a little classical soundscape at the beginning of this, and a newsreel as well. Crowds, so a bit of disturbance at the beginning of this, and then at the 1 minute mark, that chuggy heavy guitar hits you. The chorus as well is so inventive and different. It's like a cool descending and ascending dampened guitar riff. Ray Parra spits out some cool vocal lines over the chorus. Straight away, the step up from the debut is so evident, and that's for many reasons. Like I said at the beginning, production, melodies, everything you want. Songwriting is the main thing here that I think stands out. Although the debut produced some brilliant songs, it's almost like so honed in now. They perfected the songwriting. It's a great heavy track with cool sort of modern overtones. It's a great solo in this, and you can really hear the difference in the two guitar sounds. I'm really sort of glad you can hear that, because some albums will have, or some artists have, two guitars or three even, and sometimes you can't really tell the sound apart. Is it changing? Is it not? It's really evident here as the two guitar sounds from Jonathan Johnson and Jeff Rankin just really stand out in the mix. The tones are so different. Love that. Then we move on to Live Again. This is a future single. I've already reacted to this. I would say out of all the tracks on this album, this is the one that I feel the most Tremonti influences on, and sometimes Alice in Chains feel to it, I would say. This one has a huge soaring chorus that is just amazing, very uplifting as well. You know, the heaviness of the track, but very uplifting, especially the chorus. So catchy, yet so heavy at times. Then Eye of the Hurricane is next. I also reacted to this. I think this came out last year. Maybe it was the first song written for this album. It's one or another. I can't remember what came first. I could probably say that due to it sounding very similar, I think this is really honed in on the debut album. It almost feels like it'd be taken from the debut album, but a little step up as well. But it sounds the most like the debut album, I can say. So maybe the first song. It was used actually as an intro for my channel for a little while, for a good few months. So very cool. At times, Ray's vocals remind me of John Bush on this, and I've said that before. I think on when I did the album review for the first album or a reaction. Sometimes reminds me of John Bush. That's never a bad thing, obviously, from Armored Saint. Amazing vocalist, an excellent modern metal track. This also has an excellent ending where you get a brilliant sort of droney riff. It's so good, and maybe this gives me those Alice in Chains feel with that drone. Next up is Point of No Return. This will be another single. This is maybe the highlight of this album for me, although there's many. Some modern Queensryche influence, I would say, coming through here, as Ray's vocals sound so powerful. The perfect mix of old school prog metal and Deny the Fallen's take on modern metal, I would say. Outstanding stuff, and in my opinion, the perfect direction for the band to be in the future. This is where I would want them to go. I think they're really in the pocket on Point of No Return. Amazing track. Next up is If It Costs Me My Life. This was another single. I reacted to this as well. A huge descending riff is the focus of this heavy groove-laden track. Again, the feel of the debut, I think, coming through a little bit here, but tweaked to update the band's sound now. Lots of cool guitar work just during the instrumental section. There's loads of really cool guitar work during the instrumental section of the song, with some brutal riffing before an outstanding solo. Next up, we get a cover of Stryper's sing-along song. From obviously To Hell with the Devil, the classic Stryper album. Of course, a big influence on Jonathan Johnson and the band. This is a bit of a more of a stripped back version, I would say, than the original. Mainly on the vocal harmonising department. They sort of held back on those a little bit. The 2023 production here really emphasises the heaviness of the song, especially where the guitars are concerned. It's a brilliant take on the Stryper classic. Next up, we get another cover of King's X, Mission. To tell you the truth, I'll probably get my ass kicked for this, but I've never listened to King's X. I've heard a few bits and pieces, but never delved into their catalogue. So this is the first time listening to this song, so I'm just seeing it as a Deny the Fallen song at the moment because I haven't heard the original. Also a big influence, I know, on Jonathan Johnson, King's X are. Looking at it though, it definitely it's a song that has that Deny the Fallen feel. And it's a very cool addition to the album and a highlight as well, I would say. So, you know, I'm just listening to it and thinking, oh yeah, you know, it fits really well within their sound for sure. It's groove laden, it's crunchy, a load of soulful vocals from Ray Parra, a busy track as well as far as guitar work is concerned. An excellent cover. Then the last track is a little instrumental, 1 minute and 38 seconds to just end this album. Perfectly sort of named track. It's called Reflection. There's a cool acoustic guitar. The sound of the acoustic guitar is just brilliant as well, with some symphonic elements to close the album off on a reflective note. And you know, like I said, it suits the title and maybe a taste of what's to come on the next Deny the Fallen release. I'd like to see them actually, you know, get some acoustic guitar within the tracks, some light and shade as well, especially as they're, you know, going in this different direction. I can feel that coming on for the band. It's an amazing album, guys. Deny the Fallen, Echo Chamber. This is an essential purchase for any metal fan. Like I said, it's going to appeal to a lot of people. It's heavy. It's melody fulfilled all the way through it. Let me know, guys, if you're going to get this. If you're interested in getting this, I'll see you soon.